Let's now see how various forms of critical discourse analysis have been articulated and used in media studies. Generally speaking, critical discourse analysis has been used to analyze discrete text in media studies, and it has also been helpful in finding out the intertextual relationship between various texts used in media studies. These may be academic studies or other forms of media discourse, for example, the discourse which is used for advertisement and other forms of media. Generally speaking, we can identify three levels or three forms of analysis, or we can categorize the studies based on critical discourse analysis in media studies in various forms of analysis. To start with, one strand of research which has been dominant in media studies based on critical discourse analysis is the one which is largely dominated by linguistic analysis. These studies look into various linguistic choices which are employed by the creators or the users of media discourse, and they focus on the structural conventions of media text and language, which form of media discourse, for example, reportage, headlines, and interviews use which form of language or structural conventions. I mean, the conventions of form and making in language. Then they also focus on the ideational or ideological function of a particular text type, such as headlines and leads. So it's a combination of linguistic research, or the research based on linguistic choices, linguistic analysis, uh, as ideational or ideological aspects of the text. So, but since this kind of analysis has its basis in linguistic forms of analysis, so we can say that this kind of analysis was largely influenced by the studies in linguistics. The second strand tries to look into how certain ways of representing the world are used in media discourses. So, how various forms of identity have been represented or constructed in media discourses, and how various forms of media discourse enable certain conceptions into the minds of people to promote or to hide certain identities. Then it also looks into how various kinds of social belongings are normalized or naturalized in media spaces. How some kind of, and sometimes some different concept is made to look like something very normal or natural through the media discourse. The question, who gets to speak, what discourses are privileged, and what discourses are absent, needs to be brought to the light. These have been the focus to look into what kind of social belonging have been brought forward, highlighted, and what kind of identities or the ways of representing the world have been focused on. This is more, we can say, this is also more ideological in nature, this kind of work. Then the third strand, which may be very popular these days because of its emphasis on the effects of social media discourse or any media discourse on the social life in which it happens. The effect of media discourse on society, to say it in more frank and general terms. Analysts examine how media representations inflect the discursive constitution of different social phenomena. For example, the concepts like socialism, capitalism, neoliberalism, and then very deep social phenomena like racism, climate change, and feminism. How these kinds of phenomena are uh, presented in certain ways by the media discourse, and what kind of effect on these phenomena in a particular society uh, is generated through the media discourse. Because in these days, this is not out of mind option to think that various governments or powerful groups would influence people's minds about these issues through sometimes even paid content. So this is very much possible, and this kind of research is another popular strand of research within media studies, which are largely based on critical discourse analysis methodological toolkit. Uh, digitalization or digitization is also another option which has made uh, the use of critical discourse analysis in media studies much easier and helpful, because it helps us to integrate CDA into the analysis of large corpora of media discourse, which was previously not possible. So now the researcher can actually make use of large chunks of data and apply their methodology of critical discourse analysis to analyze it. And it also helps us to know different modalities which are being used in media discourses. Researchers have also analyzed various semiotic forms that were relatively marginalized, if not invisible, in linguistically based analysis, such as the visual design and branding of text, which is very common in media studies. Then it also help us in now has helped us in looking into the combination of audio and visual text, and how audio and visual modalities are used to create a certain impact or meaning in the discourse. Then it also looks into the discursive relationship between human and non-human actors. Maybe the equipment on a screen, visible on a screen of a TV show or a movie, which may have its own meanings also. So the contemporary critical discourse analysis, coupled with multimodality analysis, can help us in looking into both human and non-human actors working in the making or unmaking of a discourse. Scholars have also examined the different forms of individual and collective identity enabled in internet media discourse, how people assert or project their identity, both individual and their collective identity, may be national or group identity. And that's also another interesting area which is being investigated with the help of CDA within the domain of media studies. Then CDA researchers continually emphasize on the dialectical relationship between text and social context, which is maybe these days the most popular, or you can say governing paradigm in critical discourse analysis. It may be in media studies or in any other studies. Media sociologists have now criticized CDA for its narrow textual focus. Is same as people working or the proponent of the analysis of the discourse about political economy had criticized the narrow focus of uh, cultural studies. Similarly, people working in media studies have criticized people working purely in critical discourse analysis for their as per their argument, their overemphasis on some kind of textual analysis. But this to me, this seems to be a kind of very naive idea, because recent critical discourse analysis studies have been focusing on other aspects also. For example, there has been raising voices in various groups working on critical discourse analysis, that we need to look into the impact of the discourse on society also. There also have been voices which have been focusing on various on generating more discourses, alternative discourses, as a response to the negative discourse we criticize for various reasons. We need to provide people with alternative discourses also, or hint them towards that. So there has been multiple voices which believe in correcting these aspects, and they have been working on this continuously for last more than a decade now. Textual analysis of media is useful, but it needs to be connected to contextual analysis of media text and materially uh, produced and circulated. So we need to look into now in future, not only what different texts mean, how they were constructed, but also we need to look into the phenomena how they are planned to be circulated in the society. That's very important. Circulation is another aspect. So to sum up, we can say that it may not be enough to see what a particular discourse means. It has to be understood in various relevant contexts. That means we need to bring in socio-political context of that discourse. But we also need, in addition to this, we also need to see its means of production, who produces it, where it was produced, who was behind the production, is there any uh, some kind of production factory who is behind it. Typically speaking, is it a kind of paid content or something which is liberally getting its space in the media? And we also need to see who is behind its circulation. That's a very important point, especially to understand all kinds of political and commercial propaganda in the contemporary world. So we need to see all these multiple aspects uh, uh, to make critical discourse fueled studies in media studies more purposeful and task oriented.